We are so excited to be back, the Wise Women Roundtable, for our first video of 2026. How cool is that? And something that I'm finding fun because of our conversation prior to starting is the all of the solar activity that's been going on, and the sun has been closest to the Earth. It came closest to the Earth on January 3rd or 4th. I forget the exact date. It's around that time every year that it comes closest to the Earth. And there happened to be a full moon around that time. So we had sun closest to the earth and the moon closest to the earth. I mean, earth closest to the sun and moon closest to the earth. Sorry about that. Anyway, that felt like a really amazing way to start the year. And now we've got more solar activity going on, and people will feel that. You're going to feel that physically, mentally, emotionally, with all the energy, the light energy coming to the earth. And so if you find that going on, and I do have an article I wrote about it and some ideas about things you can do to help yourself if you're feeling that. So I'll put that in the show notes. But just we are just in this like the height, I think, of solar activity that's happening right now. And there's been some amazing things that have happened in the last few days. And we have just entered the Aquarius solar month and the last couple of days as well. And it is amazing. We've got the sun in Aquarius. I think Mercury is conjunct the sun today as we're doing this recording on January 21st. Is a their Kazemi, the magical point, Mercury having to do with how we perceive our reality, how we communicate our reality, and how we creatively express with the sun in Aquarius. So, what are the new ways that we're going to be creatively expressing? And I know we're going to have more to say about that as we go along. Venus is in Aquarius, Mars is in Aquarius. We've got asteroids in Aquarius. I mean, it is an Aquarius lineup. Like, whoa. And we're going to end this Aquarius solar month with a total, I'm sorry, an annular solar eclipse at the last degrees of Aquarius. So the Aquarian energy is like massive, and it could be seen as a reset, resetting the consciousness, our consciousness, resetting us into perhaps, and this is my intention anyway, to really embrace higher states of consciousness, to see beyond what we've been, maybe what we've been conditioned to see, believe, and think is true, which may not really be true. And Aquarius be about questioning that and going beyond whatever the limited perspective is that we have tended to have in the past. And so, how are we expanding that consciousness, that perspective, that uh, the innovative new ways of doing things and seeing things, and being on the leading edge of innovation. And also, another one of my favorite statements for Aquarius is revolution for evolution. Not revolution for the sake of revolution, but revolution for evolution. So, what are the revolutionary energies that are happening right now that are supporting us in evolving to whatever is the next level for us that's happening? So, this month and this time, as we enter the cross quarter, that'll happen on, I think the exact cross quarter is February 3rd when the sun reaches 15 Aquarius. So, that halfway point between the December solstice and the March equinox, the exact halfway point when the sun reaches 15 Aquarius. So a between place, a time when it's between one season and the next. It's that halfway point. So we're in that in between as well, and more access to other realms and dimensions when that's happening. So perhaps we'll be tuning in and getting insights that are from beyond what our everyday reality seems to be. And so we have that happening. Venus and Mars are in the underworld. They were conjunct in the underworld earlier this month, and they're continuing to be in the underworld. Venus is going to rise up out of the underworld the day of the annular solar eclipse. As if that wasn't enough, Venus is coming out of the underworld that day, and she's beginning again her ascent into reclaiming who she is, who she, having died to who she thought she was, so she could be reborn to who she truly is. And in essence, we could say this is really what's happening for the planet right now. We have had maybe a perception of who we thought we were as human beings. And now things are changing so fast and so rapidly. Technologies are accelerated. All kinds of things are going on. So this is our opportunity to again take a deeper look and say, who are we really? What are we really? How are we claiming who we truly are rather than who we thought we were? And that's being signified also by the Venus rising up out of the underworld. And then the other thing I want to speak to is the Saturn Neptune conjunction. We've been talking about it all of 2025. The exact conjunction is February 20th, where they meet at 0 degrees, and I think it's 45 minutes, something like that, of Aries. And it's the only time in thousands of years they've met at the 0 Aries point. Saturn and Neptune will come together. I think it's about every 37 years in different signs. It takes a while because Saturn has a 14-year cycle, and or it's 14 years in a sign, and Saturn is 2.5 years in a sign. So for Saturn to catch up to Neptune in a different sign, it takes a while. Anyway, so the fact that they're coming together is amazing. And if we think about Neptune as being pure source, formless energy, and Saturn being form, well, how are we reforming our reality? And at the 0 Aries point, the alpha point, the beginning point of the entire zodiacal system, 0 Aries is considered to be that. How are we resetting to something new? And in Aries, and interestingly, I've had some people say to me, well, isn't Aries warlike? And yes, it can be, but that's not its essence. Its essence is to restore cosmic order, to uphold justice, to defend and protect those who cannot do that for themselves. It's not about conquering and going out and fighting or taking over or, whatever we've decided Aries is about. It's not that. It's in its pure essence, it's about how do we create a safe space for everyone to be who they are. And Aries will hold that space and will defend and protect that if necessary. Aries is happiest with a mission and a purpose. So, what's the mission? What's the purpose? Well, maybe it's to create a better world and reset this world that is kind of crazy and insane and chaotic. And so anyway, so I just wanted to kind of plant that seed. Like, it's not that we're going, it might be that we have to go into more chaotic and warlike times because of the people who are running the world right now. And that just may be the situation. But if we can raise our consciousness enough, and we can really tune into the power of Aries to restore justice, the power of kindness, Aries can have that aspect to it as well, and the power of love. If we can really energize those powers, then I think we will have the world, then we can create the world we really want to live in, I guess is what I want to say. So with that, I'm going to pass this over to Sara to give us her insights.
Thank you, Kaylin. Yeah, well, I'm very Aquarian, Sun and Aquarius, Venus and Aquarius, and I clocked actually the other day because I'm going to have Pluto trawling through so much of my signs, and I've been going, oh my goodness. And I noticed that Venus, Pluto, and Venus were together. And I thought, here we go, we've begun, because my Venus is in the early signs of it, so I'm feeling it basically. But actually, I'm feeling very positive. Yeah, I can get a bit wobbled if I focus on things. I think that's normal in this world. But actually, if I stay in my own lane, then I actually feel quite excited and positive about the fact that my world being so Aquarian is about to, with the Pluto going through it. I heard somebody say, it's a privilege to have Pluto moving through your signs because many people never get to experience that. So here we go, basically. So what does this Aquarian want to say? Well, what I'm being very guided to just come back to my best friend, which is the nature kingdom. And actually, while you were talking, I started to get some insights, which I think I'm just going to share. They might be a bit out there, I don't know. But, this is an essence made with a white rose, and it's called sovereignty. And that is the Aries, isn't it? It's like sovereign of the self. And it's also winter, and we were chatting beforehand here in France, and I think in the UK as well, in Europe, Northern Europe anyway. I think if I look at the temperatures, also Southern Europe, it's been really cold. And it's normal, you know, on one level because it is winter, and of course it's going to get cold, but it's been colder than usual. We had mega snow here, which was really beautiful actually. But so I've been kind of very wintry myself, and I don't particularly like winter, so it's forcing me to be in it. And so as I was kind of sitting, you know, I'm going to take as an assumption, never a good thing to do, but just for the purposes of today, assume that everybody knows what sovereignty means. You know, it's like, this is me, and, you know, that's it, basically. It's the Aries thing, really, isn't it? It's like, this is me. It's the priestess thing. It's like, this is my configuration, and it's been one of the things that when I learned my astrology and my human design, essences had already brought me back from the people-pleasing piece of me. And then when I learned, you know, the design, the cosmic design that was holding me, I was like, wow, you know, wow. And that put it all into place for me. So I'm deeply grateful for that understanding of sovereignty. But as I sit in these winter phases, and obviously alongside a lot of friends and clients who are doing the same thing, working with essences in nature, I'm seeing that maybe sovereignty is also, you know, I used to hate Sundays because why did the shop, they don't do it anymore actually, but in the days when everything closed on Sundays, I was like, this is so boring. Why is everything closed? Because it was the same not being able to winter kind of thing. I just wanted it to be go all the time. So maybe also sovereignty is syncing our own, what would I call it, energy cycles, because they're all going to be personal. I mean, Kaylin, that's your expertise. We're all going to experience what you just spoke about differently. But, you know, so coming into sovereignty with ourselves could also be coming into sovereignty with winter, because we are all part of this cycle within a cycle within a cycle with a cycle. So, and at this time of year, we know that, and this is one of the things that really helped me, that deep winter, which is kind of what we're starting to come out of, the sun is now rising about 8 minutes later than it was before, something like that. I think we're starting to emerge out, but it's a very active alchemical phase. You know, there's an awful lot going on. So maybe sovereignty too is about becoming sovereign with nature, becoming sovereign with the cycles, because we are born of her. She is our, when everything else, should everything else come down, that's all we have left, isn't it? Is ourselves and the earth that we live on, and learning to live with the cycles. I know Ian and I, sometimes we grumble. In fact, we grumble about it quite a lot. We were just getting wood out of the garden today, and I saw all the pine cones have dropped. And I was like, so that's what I'll be doing in the summer. I'll be walking around the land, picking up the pine cones, ready for the winter. So there's always an active phase when you work with the land, and when you live where we used to be more city people or town people, we'd, you know, central heating. We don't really have things like that here. I mean, obviously France does have central heating, but our house doesn't. So we've kind of like synced more with the land. And as I was listening to you talk and thinking about sovereignty, this essence, this is maybe the out there bit, I don't know, who knows, but I tend to see these bottles not just as things, you know, we could go into a pharmacy or a health food shop, whatever we call it. In France, these are sold in pharmacies, which is really interesting. In the UK, it would be more what we would call a health food shop. You know, so if I was anxious or depressed, I'd go and look for an essence which is trying to fix or regulate a state. But actually, what essences do, they enter into they don't shift our state at all. They enter into a conversation with us because you've got a living intelligence in the bottle. So as we were talking, I was thinking, well, this is a rose, and we know that roses are really rooted. So when you make an essence, you might make it with the flower, but the flower contains the consciousness of the root because it's grown from that root. It's the whole is in there. The whole plant consciousness is potentially in there. So I was thinking, well, maybe when I take this essence in the winter, it helps me with the rooting. And maybe if I take it in the summer, it helps me with the blooming. I don't know really. I've never actually said this before. So, but as I've been taking this essence over the winter with a group of with some clients, I actually thought I started realizing how much rest I need, and I'm probably just catching up from all the years when I didn't rest. But it's like, okay, so this is a 1 year, this is a fire horse year, all of the things. This is going to be an active year, and I want to fully partake in it in whatever way I am asked to or I desire to. So I have, really been hearing not just, oh, I'm tired, therefore I'm going to rest, but I've been hearing, no, Sarah, you have to fill, nourish, like really go for it this year, like mega go for it. And as we were talking, I thought, I wonder if that is because the root of the rose is actually informing me because we are in winter. So nobody knows the answer to that really, but And just to say, in the show notes of this, if I'll share, there's a couple. I'm going to share a couple of tracks of music that my partner Ian and I have been co-creating with the Music of the Plants device, and one of them is with Star of Bethlehem, and one of them which is for shock and trauma, which we could all have, like take for the rest of our lives, I think. It's a very beautiful white flower. It's in Rescue Remedy, which we've spoken about a lot. And Cerato, which is a plant I've also spoken, is a very beautiful blue flower, which is about self-trust. And I think that is probably the era that we're coming into. And I know you're going to touch on that, Elizabeth. It's like, what do I trust? And if I trust myself, like really trust myself, really trust my gut, trust my intuition, trust my life purpose, if I trust in me as myself as a sovereign being on this earth, doing my best, all of the things, then only good things can happen. There we go. So I didn't really expect I was going to say all of that, but I did. But there we go. Thank you, Sovereignty Rose. So yes, Elizabeth, please take over.
Thanks, Sarah.
I hand you the
Thank you.
baton.
I love the root part because I think you're quite right, and I want to help people kind of think about what is it going to take for you to get to where Sarah's talking about, and use this time of basically like a grand super level reset that's even in the stars, the supra level even. So like a supra is even bigger than super. And it's a meta reset of consciousness. What's that going to look like? And so I'm coming from a slightly different angle here, where this earlier today I was listening to Chase Hughes, and he's incredibly intelligent. And anyone who wants to understand how to be a better human right now would be well informed to listen to more of what Chase has to say, because it's going to give you a chance to be able to be more mentally discerning. And so he comes from a very nice, keen, but heart-centered masculine viewpoint on change. And so in the description notes, I'm going to send everyone Chase's 8 predictions for 2026. And these predictions all work together. But basically what he's saying in a nutshell is that we're facing this new era where the change is so immense. Now the wave is breaking, right? So we've been building up for some decades. I would argue probably most of my life, because we were all just talking before the show about how my generation, about 1982, between 1980 and 1983 or so, that's the last kids who had a childhood without the internet, in the modern world. And so I'm from that very specific group of people, this generation, who we were the last ones who did not have the internet as kids. Um, we were the last ones who could like go ride our bikes around the whole entire neighborhood in the area, and no one had cell phones, and no one knew where we were. But but as long as we came home before dark, then it was fine. Um, and so that is key, because now we're coming to the basically the break in the wave with that technology, because it went from the internet and then very quickly into AI. And there's two different kinds of AI, and there's a lot of folks who fear AI. And I want to quell your fear a little bit, but also validate you, because you're sensing something in your gut, and you're recognizing we don't want to lose the organicness of our connection to the earth. We got to get our kids off the screens. Young people between 20s and 30s right now are getting diagnosed with dementia because of the overuse of the screens and the AI and all these things. And brain development is being affected, fertility, loneliness. This epidemic of loneliness is one of the things Chase says is going on, right? So during these big, huge times of change, there's going to be wars, there's going to be revolutions, there's going to be discomfort and a lot of friction between people, because they're trying to get sort of hustled by two different energies. One of them wants them to hook into the virtual world, and that greater alien AI that's not even from here, that's the one everyone has a sense to be afraid of. And it's totally different than, say, ChatGPT or any of these other things on the computer. Even the ones who seem to be able to have personality, they're simply language models that are mirroring back to you. And so everything that you do with the AI is simply going to mirror back to you more and more about yourself. It's if you're willing to maintain an awareness of this sovereignty that Sarah's talking about, then one of the very cool, happy symptoms of sovereignty is discernment. And discernment, you can't do anything without proper discernment of what's real. And your body is built to understand levels of divine order and reality that you don't mentally have any grasp on. Your body has access to all these dimensions of consciousness. So, and psychedelics becoming mainstream is another thing Chase predicted, which is already happening. Um, that's that's people reconnecting to the dimensions. And the AI, both types, the kind that's not from here and that doesn't belong here, and the kind that is useful to humans, these two don't have any connection to these other dimensions at all. We are their portal. They need us to be able to access any of that. The human being is a key. That's why we've been hunted across the galaxy. So humans are literally living keys to the divine order. And that self-trust, start there. But remember, you are not your body. You've been invited to connect with the body. The true sovereign part of you is immortal and is a being of light that has never died and that has had a relationship with this universe since the beginning. And that kind of authority is both earthly and it's also galactic, it's universal, and it goes even beyond that, because that's where we all come from as source. So that recognition doesn't require huge amounts of belief. Instead, we're going to see one of the things I'm predicting is that we're going to see more mainstream discussion about source and people calling source God, but it being a scientific concept that doesn't require religious belief anymore. It'll have constant proof around you because of what seems like coincidence, and it's never coincidence. There's no such thing. You're constantly interacting with this source. And what it's going to do is it's going to change science and it's going to change the way we use technology and AI, and it's going to be good because we're going to recognize that everything arises from consciousness and that AI can never, ever, ever make up for the levels of creative power that humans have. That AI can only ever do what very wisely Sara said at one point that it can't make anything new. It can only recycle what we give it. And that's quite true. But it will be very useful to everyone for lots of reasons. And that so that humans we're going to reach out. We're going to keep going out into these dimensions with our mind. We'll have opportunity to. AI is going to make some things easier. Um, we're going to see the complete and utter change of the political economy of our planet. And we're going to watch really cool kinds of currency arise as people reject the New World Order. And today is a special day because we've got Davos, we've got WEF, we've got all these big, huge things going on. And so, we're bringing the feminine perspective to the table. What's the solution? How do we make sure that our root is really strong and that we can bloom this year in a beautiful way and begin from the ground up, from the trust in self up to create a totally different society? You're going to have to keep your eyes off of the war and all of the fear mongering and start to recognize that much of what is on the internet will be utterly untrue. And so there's going to be a loss of trust in the internet. And people will have to turn back to each other. So that's going to be the beginnings of, say, like local currency, meritocracy, and local governance. The assemblies of the people speaking in like a town, right? Ecuador, that's part of why I like Ecuador, because we have the Asamblea and the assembly of the people. And no one gets paid to do that. You get voted on because of merit. I got voted on to the local government even though I didn't want to do it because I'd been doing so much work with the local economy. People asked me to do a little job, a secretary job for the Asamblea, but that meant my voice was really important to people. So it's through merit that people will choose their leadership. And that's going to be really cool and fresh. And that sounds very Aries too. So what are the solutions and what are these quick fixes? Pay close attention to what are the quick fixes and what are the real solutions. The real solutions will always be grounded in sovereignty. They'll always be grounded in, hey, well, we want to get together and we have enough resources here in our little town here in the Andes or in the United States or in Europe or Australia or wherever. We have enough for us to be able to manage enough to be able to create something where we don't need to have big corporations or global governance or anything like that. None of that's interesting. It's going to turn more into an agrarian society, kind of like what Ecuador is, where people, you don't need that many people to be able to then have a threshold of abundance available to everyone. We're going to see things like what happened in World War II when this little Austrian town, the miracle of, oh, I can never pronounce the town's name. It's like Weimar or something like that. And they had a huge inflation problem with their money. And so they said, well, we don't want to use the national money then. We're going to create our own local currency. And in 1 year, they completely rebuilt their entire town. And they had more than enough abundance. Everyone was actually getting wealthy because of how they were treating one another. And it was so cool. And then, of course, the big government came down and shut it down. But revolution for evolution is that motto. But the most important part of all, and I was saying this to the ladies, is ritual. Ritual grounds us into the physical. Ritual gives us a chance to create very intentional relationships with the dimensions, but also with the earth and with our bodies. And ritual is key. In fact, I'm teaching a 10-month long course on ritual and alchemy. I've never done that before, but I'm going to teach it according to the 12 dimensions and how to use all the dimensions in ritual. But we're going to actually do experiments because this is science. This is the new science. We're going to do experiments, and then I'm calling it experiments in natural law. But you're using the divine order. You don't have to worry about spending all your time trying to imagine things into existence anymore. You're going to be able to utilize all these great tools because if you can surf this wave of change, you're going to be able to come to an incredible space of peace and creativity where everyone, a lot of people are going to get tumbled about and crushed under all of these changes, or their bodies can't handle it. Including little kids, they shouldn't be dealing with the power of these little miniature computers. Um, they need their grounded experience through ritual. Even chore charts are ritual, right? I think that is the missing piece that the masculine couldn't see in Chase's really beautiful understanding of what's coming, and that's the biggest solution we have. So, what can you do about it? Like Sarah's doing ritually, doing these essences and going through a deepening of experience with these very particular frequencies, light, essences, plants, the just the little parks and yards that you have access to. There's incredible magic in getting grounded physically, literally. You can test it yourself. Go outside with your shoes on and put a grounding rod into the earth. And if you have the gauge, you can look at the electromagnetic charge. And if you take your shoes off, you're going to see that charge immediately go all the way up. If you put them back on, you're going to see it go to zero. That simple act of being closer to the earth physically, called grounding, we know for sure, actually completely changes the polarities in the body immediately. It's an instant fix. Hugging trees does the same. And you can double it up, get barefoot and hug a tree. Even if it's cold, you can still do things to help yourself. And then water, too. Ritually using water to cleanse yourself. In the shamanic tradition, using salt and then washing yourself with water. It also has an effect on your field. Anything that can raise your vibe, right? And to bring it into ritual every day or have a variety of things to choose from, that's a good place to start. And that's going to put basically that huge fire behind us in this fire horse year. That's what the fire is. It's the power, right? It's the gas that gives us a chance to move forward. So I think there's a lot more around what we can do that'll come up throughout the year. And we're going to keep doing these talks and keep sharing with you what we see. But think of it that way, that's where we're at really, and that the water's going to break. And I think it'll break, at that eclipse. The wave will break. It's a wave of technological change and galactic change, just like Aquarius requires huge amounts of galactic authority coming from space. And the sun just, reminding us, bink, just to remind you how much power I have. Don't underestimate what's going to happen with the sun. And prepare yourself in for those changes. And just know that, let's say a solar flare does a Carrington event type of thing. It's totally that literally almost just happened. The X2 flare actually nearly acted like a Carrington event. Um, so it was really close. And that's all it took was an X2 this time. The Carrington event was much larger. and X2 is quite weak, but our electromagnetic field is like 35-40% gone. So everything that is doing, that light is forcing evolution, and your body is going to keep letting you know that. But like Sarah said, trust your gut. The most intelligent brain of all in your body is your gut, because it's the one who actually lets you know what's going to help you survive and what's going to help you thrive. And that's where we have to start. And if something like that happens, it'll be a great benefit in the end because we'll all be forced to come out of our houses and get to know each other and start helping one another with resources through cycles and ritual and care and love and gentleness. And we're all totally capable of that. So we'll see how that pans out. But yeah, thank you all. Thanks so much, ladies, for this talk. And I'm glad that we can give people some insight about what's happening.
Thank you. That was brilliant for both of you. It was absolutely brilliant. So just be sure to check out the show notes because there will be links there that we've all mentioned, and that can take you further and deeper into this as well. And stay tuned for when we come back and do this again because it's so much fun.
It
So
is. Yeah.
bye everyone.
Bye, everybody. Bye.